If I had known today would be the day everything shifted, I might have changed out of my pajama shorts. The hum of my gaming console filled the living room, paired with the occasional click of my controller and the distant laughter of my brother from upstairs. It was just another lazy summer afternoon. One of those in-between days where the air feels heavy with something you can't quite name. I'd paused my game to stretch when the door creaked open behind me. And there he was, Liam. Stepped inside like he belonged here, like he hadn't been gone for months. My brother's best friend. The guy who used to sleep over every other weekend, who'd once taught me how to beat the final boss in Last Reign, because I kept dying and wouldn't stop whining about it. Liam, with his effortless charm and that infuriating smirk that made it impossible to tell whether he was mocking you or just being himself. "I figured you'd be exactly here," he said, leaning against the door frame, arms crossed like he was trying not to laugh at me. "Still glued to your screen?" My heart stuttered in that irritating way it always did when he looked directly at me. I didn't know when that started. Probably sometime last year when his teasing felt more like flirting and less like harmless banter. Or maybe it was earlier, when I started noticing how he'd let his hand rest a second too long on my shoulder, or how his cologne stuck in the air after he left a room. "Hey," I said, scrambling to pause my game and sit up straighter as if that somehow made me look cooler. "Didn't know you were coming by?" "Yeah, your brother texted me. We're supposed to head out later, but he's still showering or something." He walked over and dropped onto the couch beside me like no time had passed, his thigh brushing mine just slightly, like it always used to. I didn't move away. I didn't want to. There was something different about him now. He'd let his hair grow a bit, messier than usual, and he had this faint summer tan that made his eyes look lighter. He caught me looking, and I turned away, quickly, pretending to be interested in the game menu. "You've gotten better at hiding your screen when I show up," he teased, nudging me. "You used to be an open book." I swallowed the smile threatening my face. Liam had always had that effect on me, bringing out parts of myself I wasn't quite ready to admit were there. And now, sitting beside him again, I could feel it. Something stirring, something I'd been trying to keep buried. Maybe today was different. Liam had been around since I was 12. He and my brother were the kind of best friends that communicated in half sentences and inside jokes no one else understood, which used to annoy the hell out of me until he started pulling me into it. 2. I was always the tag-along little brother, hovering at the edges of their movie nights or backyard hangouts. But Liam never made me feel like a nuisance. He'd toss me the second controller during late-night gaming sessions, steal bites from my snacks like it was no big deal, and tell me my sarcastic comebacks were actually decent for someone my age. Somewhere between those late-night laughs and mock fights over who got the last slice of pizza, I'd started looking at him differently. I couldn't even pinpoint when exactly. Maybe it was the night he defended me after some senior tried to pick on me at school. Or the time he sat beside me in silence after I didn't get into my first-choice college, just being there, handing me a Dr. Pepper and not forcing me to talk. That kind of connection. You don't get it often. And the older I got, the more it meant. He was scrolling through his phone now, but his leg was still brushing against mine like he didn't even notice. Or maybe he did. "I almost forgot how much of a couch gremlin you are," Liam said, nudging me lightly with his elbow. "Do you even go outside anymore?" "Only when the Wi-Fi gives out," I replied, smirking. He let out a low laugh. "Figures." We fell into that familiar rhythm so easily. Light teasing, shared memories, unspoken understanding. It felt safe. It always felt safe with Liam, even when my chest twisted with feelings I hadn't dared speak aloud. "Oh, by the way," he added, as if he'd just remembered, "your brother invited me to stay over tonight. We're heading out of town early. Tomorrow for that cabin trip, remember?" "Right, the cabin trip. My brother's last-minute birthday idea. A quick overnight escape with a few friends, Liam included. I hadn't really wanted to go, but now I wasn't so sure. I thought you guys were just doing a day hike. Nah, change plans. Apparently it's a whole night thing now. Small cabin, not much space. We'll probably be bunking. Up. My stomach flipped. Bunking up. Sharing close quarters. One room, maybe even a shared sleeping bag if the weather turned bad enough. My brain short-circuited somewhere between he'll be in the same room and what if he sleeps next to me? Again like he used to? Cool, I said, keeping my voice neutral. He glanced over at me, his eyes narrowing just slightly like he picked up on something in my tone. You still snore? He asked, that teasing grin returning. Only when I'm forced to share oxygen. With someone who smells like cheap cologne. Ouch. He clutched his chest in mock pain. This cologne costs more than your entire game collection. Still smells like gas station soap. He laughed again, full, unguarded. The kind of laugh that used to echo through our hallways late at night when my brother had already passed out, and we were still up talking about music or stupid internet videos. His hand brushed mine when he leaned forward to set his phone down. And even though it was just a second, I felt it. Warm, solid, electric. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The noise from the game menu kept playing in the background, but it felt far away. He looked at me then, really looked at me. Eyes softer, quieter. The kind of look that says something without a word. And just like that, I realized. The trip tomorrow wouldn't be the challenge. Spending the night in the same cabin, maybe even inches apart. That was going to test every part of me I'd tried so hard to keep buried. The cabin was smaller than I remembered, a one-room wooden thing tucked into the woods near Hollow Lake, supposedly built by someone's uncle back in the 70s. No insulation, one bathroom, and a creaky floorboard that screamed every time you stepped near the sink. My brother and the others were still outside, laughing around the fire pit, probably a few beers in by now. I stayed back, claiming I was tired. Truth was, I needed a minute. To breathe. To not be around Liam when I couldn't. Stop noticing the way he looked in that thin, long-sleeve shirt that clung to his arms after the hike. Or how his laugh had this low, familiar pull to it that made me ache in ways I didn't have the vocabulary for. I sat cross-legged on one of the bunk beds, messing with the zipper on my jacket, trying to distract myself from the fact that there were only 2 beds and 4 of us. Liam came in about 15 minutes later, pushing the door open with his shoulder and shivering. It's freezing out there. I looked up. His cheeks were flushed from the cold, dark curls a little damp from the mist that had started falling earlier. He shook his head like a dog and shut the door behind him. They're staying out a bit longer. Figured I'd call dibs on some warmth while I can. He dropped his backpack near the foot of the bed across from mine, then froze. Wait. Did anyone tell you about the sleeping arrangements? I blinked. No. Why? He gave a sheepish smile, scratching the back of his neck. So, turns out, the air mattresses got moldy or something, and we left one of the sleeping bags back in the car. It's a 2-hour hike, so... Yeah. Are you saying... I'm saying, he interrupted, tossing his hoodie onto the wooden dresser. We're sharing. I stared at him. He grinned. Don't look so panicked. I don't kick in my sleep. That wasn't the part that worried me. He grabbed the only sleeping bag from his pack and unrolled it across the bed beside mine. Not the floor, not a blanket on the side. The bed. And he made no move to split it or arrange anything else. I watched. Him from the corner of my eye as he peeled off his damp shirt, tossing it over the bedpost and replacing it with a dry, worn-out tee. I tried not to stare. Failed. His movements were casual, relaxed, completely unaware or pretending to be. He flopped back on the mattress and sighed. Damn, my legs are gonna hate me tomorrow. I swallowed hard and sat on the edge of my own bunk. Are you really okay with this? He propped himself up on one elbow. Yeah. It's not like we haven't crashed on the same couch before. That was true. But we weren't 16 anymore. And back then, I didn't have to pretend I wasn't affected when he brushed against me in the dark. I lay down on my side, facing the wall, heart pounding. I heard the rustle of the sleeping bag behind me, then silence. And then, the bed dipped. Slightly. He was close. Close enough that I could feel his warmth through the thin layer of fabric between us. His foot accidentally brushed mine under the covers. "Sorry," he murmured, not moving it. "It's fine," I whispered, voice too small. The silence stretched. I could smell him. That subtle mix of pine soap and something that was just Liam. My chest tightened. I stared at the knot in the wood paneling ahead of me and tried to think of anything else. Video games, calculus, traffic patterns, anything but the way my skin was hyper-aware of him beside me. "Hey," he said softly behind me. I didn't move. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You're quiet." "I'm trying not to overthink the fact that you're literally an inch away from me." He laughed under his breath. "You always overthink." "I know." A beat. Then his voice, quieter. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I turned, slowly, facing him in the narrow space between our pillows. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and I could just barely make out his features. His eyes searched mine. My mouth opened, then closed. "Say it," I begged myself, but I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I deflected. "Just weird being here, you and me, like this." "Yeah," he said. "It is." And yet, he didn't move away. His hand, resting near mine, shifted slightly, his pinky brushing against mine. He didn't pull it back. The contact was so small, so innocent, and yet it lit every nerve ending in my hand on fire. I turned onto my back, heart hammering in my chest. He mirrored me, staring at the ceiling. "This reminds me of that night in your basement," he said quietly, "when the power went out, and we just talked about random crap for hours. You told me you wanted to live in a treehouse and eat cereal forever." He chuckled. "I still do." I smiled despite myself. "Figures." His hand found mine again, this time deliberately. Just resting there. No pressure, no expectations. Held my breath. And in that moment, lying inches from the guy I'd tried so hard not to fall for, I realized something terrifying. I already had. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Lying side by side in the narrow bed, our hands touching softly between us like a secret, I could feel every second stretch out, like the world outside the cabin had slowed just to listen in. The only sounds were the occasional pop from the fire outside and Liam's slow, even breathing. He seemed calm. I wasn't. My thoughts looped endlessly. What would happen if I said something? What might shatter if I did? It wasn't just the fear of rejection. It was the fear that something I loved, him, might never be the same after. And yet not saying anything felt worse. My heart had never been this loud. "You ever think about stuff?" I asked finally, my voice barely more than a whisper. Liam didn't move. "Stuff?" I turned my head slightly, enough to glimpse his silhouette. "Like people. Who you are, who you want to be." He let out a quiet exhale. "Late night deep talk. Here we go." "I'm serious." Yeah, I do." A pause. "Lately, more than I used to." The silence returned, dense and uncertain. I was terrified to break it again, but the words had been piling up inside me for too long. They had weight now, sharp edges. "I used to think I had it all figured out," I said slowly. "But then, somewhere along the way, I didn't." "Welcome to adulthood," Liam muttered, but his voice was gentler than before. A little sad. I rolled onto my side again, facing him in the dark. Do you ever feel like you want something you're not supposed to want? His eyes met mine then, just barely visible in the faint moonlight seeping through the small window, his expression unreadable. I think I know what you're asking, he said carefully. I swallowed hard, fingers tightening slightly against the sheet. And, I whispered, I'm trying to figure out if I'm brave enough to answer. That stopped me cold. I stared at him, heart thudding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He shifted closer, not by much, just an inch, but it felt monumental. His fingers brushed mine again, this time lingering. You're not the only one confused, he said softly. I've been trying to pretend it's nothing, that I'm imagining things, that I'm just close with my friend's little brother and it doesn't mean anything. His words weren't smooth or confident. They trembled with every syllable. I knew this was hard for him. Liam didn't do emotional vulnerability. He made jokes, deflected. But now, his voice was bare. It does mean something, I said. To me. He looked at me then, really looked. No teasing smile, no protective wall. Just Liam, raw and open and scared like I was. How long? He asked. I blinked. What? How long have you felt something? I hesitated. Since last summer, maybe. When we all went to the lake and you pushed me off the dock, and I pretended to be mad, but I kept thinking about how you looked when you laughed. A beat passed. I think I knew something was different even before that, I added, but I didn't want to ruin anything. Liam's eyes searched mine. His hand reached up slowly, brushing a piece of hair from my forehead like it was the most natural thing in the world. You haven't ruined anything, he said. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. Then why does it feel like we're standing at the edge of something huge? I asked. Like one step forward and everything changes. Because it does. He sat up slightly, leaning on one arm. I mirrored him, my heartbeat rising again. He stared down at the mattress between us, as if gathering courage from the silence. I've never felt this way about a guy before, he said finally. Not until you. And at first I thought it was just admiration. You're smart, funny. You challenge me without even trying. But then I started noticing the way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't paying attention. My breath caught, and how sometimes when you laughed at something I said, I'd get this stupid rush in my chest like I was doing something right. He looked up at me again, and how I started looking for excuses to come over when I knew your brother wouldn't be home. My cheeks were burning, but I didn't care. I'm scared, he admitted. Not because of what this is, but because I don't know what comes next. We don't have to know everything right now, I said. I needed to know. I wasn't alone in this. You're not, he said, voice thick. He reached out then, slowly, like he was still giving me a chance to back away. I didn't. His hand slid against my cheek, warm and shaking slightly. My breath caught as he leaned in, not all at once, but with hesitation, like he was giving me one more second to stop him. I didn't. His lips brushed mine gently at first, barely a touch. Then again, more certain this time, I leaned into it, trembling, overwhelmed by the feeling of finally. My hand found his shirt, clutching it like I was afraid he'd vanish. The kiss deepened, not hungry or rushed, but filled with emotion that had been sitting under the surface for too long. His thumb stroked my cheek as he kissed me, and something inside me cracked open. When we pulled away, we were both breathless. Holy crap, he murmured, forehead resting against mine. Yeah, I whispered, heart thudding like it might take off without me. That just happened. He laughed softly, and I could feel the smile against my skin. I don't know what this means, he said. I don't know what we're supposed to do now. I reached for his hand and laced our fingers together. We start small. We figure it out. Together. His eyes softened. You're sure? I've never been more sure about anything. He kissed me again, slower this time, as if we had all the time in the world. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't afraid of what came next. We didn't say much right after, just lay there, hands still intertwined, the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. Outside, the fire had burned down to embers, casting a faint orange flicker through the window. Inside the cabin, everything felt warmer. Not just because of the heat between us, but because something invisible had lifted, something we'd both been carrying without admitting it. Liam was still lying close, one of his legs tangled with mine, his thumb brushing the back of my hand like he was still making sure I was real. His touch was softer now, less guarded. So, I murmured, breaking the quiet with a small grin. Should I tell my brother you kissed me, or should we wait until the wedding? Liam groaned and rolled onto his back, dragging a hand over his face. God, don't joke about a wedding. I'm still wrapping my head around the kissing part. I laughed. Actually laughed, not just a nervous chuckle. It felt good, easy, like we were still us, just more. You kissed me first, I said, turning onto my side again so I could look at him. He peeked at me through his fingers. Technicalities. We both laughed this time, and he reached out, his fingers brushing along my jaw. It wasn't teasing or accidental anymore. It was intentional, familiar, like he wanted to touch me and wasn't afraid to show it. You look different, he said. How so? Calmer, lighter. I shrugged, but he wasn't wrong. It's weird. I spent so long overthinking everything, wondering if I was crazy for feeling what I felt, but now that it's out there, I don't know. It just feels right. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Yeah, me too. He slid closer again, propping himself on his elbow beside me. So, what does this mean? Like us? Tomorrow? The real world? I let the question settle. I'd thought about that part too, the complicated bits. My brother, Liam's family, the way people might look at us. It means we take it one step at a time, I said finally. We don't need to have all the answers. We just keep choosing each other. He smiled at that, small and honest. I like that. I reached up, brushing my thumb against his lower lip. And maybe we don't tell my brother right away. I'd like to enjoy being alive for a little longer. Liam chuckled, then caught my hand in his and pressed a kiss into my palm. The gesture sent a flutter through my chest that I didn't even try to hide. We'll figure it out, he said. I want this. I want you. I stared at him, overwhelmed by how natural it sounded coming from him. Not rushed, not forced. Just true. I want you too, I whispered. We stayed like that, close and quiet, for a long time, sometimes kissing, sometimes just looking at each other like we were seeing each other for the first time, even though we'd been in each other's lives for years. Eventually, he shifted behind me, spooning me without a word, his arms wrapping around my waist like they belonged there. This okay? He murmured into the back of my neck. I smiled, eyes already growing heavy. Perfect. And as I drifted off in his arms, I didn't worry about the next day or the ones after that. I just knew that something had changed between us tonight. Something real. Something that for once I didn't have to run from. For the first time, I fell asleep knowing I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next morning, the sunlight slipped through the cabin curtains, cutting a soft line across Liam's bare shoulder. I was still tucked against him, our legs tangled like they had been all night, and for once, I didn't feel the urge to pull away or pretend like it hadn't happened. I watched his chest rise and fall with slow, steady breaths. There was something calming about seeing him like this, unguarded, still. And selfishly, I wanted to stay in this moment longer than time would allow. His eyes fluttered open a second later, and when they landed on me, he smiled. Just a slow, sleepy smile. No walls, no teasing. "Hey," he whispered, voice scratchy, with sleep. "Hey," I said, suddenly shy. He lifted a hand and tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear, fingertips lingering against my skin. "You stayed." "You didn't let go," I teased, though the truth in that statement made my chest warm. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he finally understood, and then, in a voice lower and more serious than before, he asked, "Are you okay?" It was the kind of question he'd always asked, but it meant something different now. It wasn't just friendly concern. It was intimate, protective, like he wanted to hold more than just my body, like he wanted to carry the weight I'd been holding alone. I nodded. "I am. Are you?" He hesitated for half a breath. "Yeah. I'm scared of what this might mean, for your brother, for my family, but I've never been more sure of someone before." We were quiet for a beat. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed across the floorboards, where I'd tossed it last night. Liam groaned and buried his face in the pillow. "Reality's already knocking, huh?" I slid out from under the blanket, grabbing the phone and blinking at the screen. A text from my brother. "On our way back now. Traffic's brutal. Be there." "In 2 hours." "Well," I said, sighing, "we've got a small window before this turns into a comedy of errors." Liam sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. "Do we tell him today?" I paused. "I don't want to keep us a secret. But maybe let's not drop the whole, 'Hey, I'm dating your best friend' bomb the second he walks through the door." He chuckled, pulling on his shirt. "Fair. I don't think the best man speech should end in a fist fight." I threw a pillow at him, and he dodged, laughing as it bounced off the edge of the couch. "But seriously," I said, sitting beside him again, knees brushing. "We'll tell him soon, and when we do, we'll do it together." His hand found mine, firm, sure, lacing our fingers like it was second nature. "Together," he echoed. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out the old game controller I'd let him use the night before. He turned it over in his hands thoughtfully before holding it out to me. "Think we've got time for one last match before your brother gets here?" I stared at him, amused. "You planning to let me win this?" "Time?" he grinned, eyes gleaming. "Absolutely not. But I might lean closer and distract you by whispering things I shouldn't say in polite company." I laughed, soft and unfiltered, and took the controller. "Bring it on, coward." We set up the console, sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch, and the screen lit up between us like old times. Except now, everything was different. Better. Real. As the opening theme played and our characters loaded, Liam leaned over and brushed a kiss against my temple. It was simple, gentle, but it was everything. And as we played, laughing and nudging each other like kids, I realized something. We didn't need to map out every step ahead. We just needed to keep showing up for each other, honest, scared, in love, and still learning. The rest, that would come, one moment at a time, together.